I think I spoke to you after the first season of the show, when you were campaigning for the first season of Shameless. And I guess now you've done 3 seasons, you're heading into a 4th. What's it like being part of an established show, a show that's coming back year after year?
It's exciting. It's fulfilling. It's shocking. I guess it just feels good that we work so hard on something that people respond to and watch, and we like making, and we get to make more of it. And that's, actors want to act, and so this show means that I can do it for a little bit longer. So I'm happy about that.
Mm. And what do you think's been the success of Shameless? What's been its key to success? Because in some ways, Frank's quite unlikable. It's a bit of a, in some ways, dirty show. I don't mean that in a bad way, but you could see a show like this not catching on with people. What do you think's made this one catch on?
I think at its core, it deals with a lot of issues that other shows don't. Living in poverty, coming out of the closet at a young age, alcoholism and drugs, and the real effect that can take on a family. And it's kind of a new kind of modern family. I mean, where the siblings end up raising each other because there's a real lack of solid parenting. And I think people relate to the characters and the struggles they're going through. And I know what you mean by it could have just as easily not caught on, because it's offensive. That's what it aims to do. It's inherently, the show is called Shameless, and we're very unafraid to push boundaries when we feel that there's a reason to do so. So I think that it's definitely a scarier show to watch than others, and I think that's why people sometimes get a little, freaked out by it. But we love it, and it lets us as actors push boundaries and try different things, and I've never not been happy to go to work one day on this show.
What do you think the biggest boundary the show's pushed in its 3 seasons?
Well, we had a kind of a incest storyline. Well, we had that the first year too, but we had a bit of it this year. There's really not anything where any culture or any topic that is off limits for us. I think that's why it's so interesting to play this character. I mean, for me, the character is I get to play with so much duality, because she's such a young girl who's becoming a woman, but she has so much responsibility, and she's had kind of no good parenting. So she's kind of figuring it out as she goes along. And, obviously Frank, William H. Macy's character, lives in a lot of moral gray area. And the effects of his alcoholism and drugging over the years are finally starting to catch up with him. So we saw the show take a bit of a more dramatic turn this year when my character had to take her father to court for custody of the kids. And that was kind of the most excited I've been about a storyline, because I felt it was really kind of the dramatic emotional grounding of the show was starting to really take hold and happen, and I loved working with Macy in that courtroom scene, and everything that we got to do there was really exciting for me.
Yeah, no, that was a big episode, and it'll be. Do you think in some ways with that courtroom scene and things, her taking her father to court and everything like that, I saw a real sort of a contrast in some ways between him and her when the judge takes her aside, or takes Fiona aside and says, look, you're going to have to give up a lot if you want to take on these kids. You're going to have to sacrifice your 30s, your life, pretty much the next 20 years of your life. And sort of that contrasts so much with Frank, who it seems like he hasn't given up much for his kids. Whenever there's a choice between himself and his kids, he chooses to do his own thing. How do you think that sort of dynamic plays with him being a very selfish character, not sacrificing much, and you in that scene and in that storyline having to give up, in some ways, a lot of things?
Well, his character's so interesting to me because he's not an idiot alcoholic. He's not an idiot drug addict. He's actually quite smart and educated. He just has a horrible addiction problem, and it turns him into a really miserable person and a horrible father and a really kind of inherently bad human being. But he's very smart and not all bad inside. You just very rarely see that. And for the scene in the courtroom, this is, I think, where people really kind of, and where I really connected and fell in love with Fiona, because she's finally standing up and admitting the kind of abuse that she and her siblings have suffered at the hands of his kind of MIA parenting, and telling a story about how he left her on the side of the road when she was just little and had to take care of her siblings. And obviously for the writers to write me a kind of page monologue like that was very nerve-wracking, and did elicit a couple people at the table read being like, oh, now Emmy's got a full page of dialogue, what about that? But it was a real thrill for me, because getting to kind of connect to that amount of material and that kind of material was really fun.
How do you think Fiona's developed over the course of the 3 years? In some ways I've seen her become a bit more grounded, I guess, having to take on that responsibility. But what do you think?
Well, I think we're starting to see the extent to which her self-sacrifice will go, and her loyalty to her siblings. Like you said, when the judge takes her aside and says, your youngest sibling is 2 years old, that means the next 16 years of your life at least will be devoted to raising your family and not to yourself and not to your future. For her to kind of process that and agree to that responsibility shows the kind of person that she is inside. So even if this family cheats and steals and is morally kind of corrupt in a lot of ways, there's a loyalty that lies in the fact that they're blood that I think is really powerful. So amidst all of the kind of farcical silliness and the boundary pushing that happens on our show, there's real love and real commitment to each other. And I think that's kind of inherently what people keep coming back, the reason why people keep coming back to the show, because the Gallaghers are a family unlike your family, but their feelings for each other are maybe not unlike how we feel about our family members.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely. And I get. Do you think Frank's the worst dad on TV?
Archie Bunker might have been up there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. He's definitely up there. Can't say Tony Soprano was a brilliant father, although he was really more there for his kids. He was a mobster, so. There's definitely, but that's where interesting characters lie. I mean, that's where Bryan Cranston lies. That's where James Gandolfini and William H. Macy lie. It's really exciting to watch these characters that get written and that have secrets and that aren't one note. And especially for women as well, we're seeing on cable that women get so much more kind of dynamic storylines than they do in other places. And so that's why I feel so lucky to be on a cable show where, I get the material that makes me so excited to come to work.
Well, we're an Emmy Awards site, or an awards website at Gold Derby, and we love talking about the Emmy Awards. And I guess in some ways... What, sorry?
My namesake?
Yes, your namesake. And I guess in some ways it's been a bit unfortunate for you, because there have been so many great female performances on TV at the moment that it's just such a crowded category to get into. But I guess there's also been a positive in the sense of you get to be on TV at a time when there are so many great roles for women. What's that been like?
Well, I think that, as actors, getting the job is the hardest part, and then doing it well is the next hardest part. And then people realizing that you do it well is just kind of the icing on top. I don't think as actors, you can't be waiting for people to pat you on the back, and you can't be waiting for people to tell you how great you are. You have to just commit to the material and do it to its fullest extent and hope that it connects to people on an emotional level. We're seeing people watch our show in overwhelming numbers, so clearly that's happening and it's connecting to people, and that feels fantastic. And if trophies or accolades come, that's great, and I'm sure our bosses will be really happy. And that would be nice on a shelf and nice to to know that your peers think of you in such a high regard. And if it doesn't, then you can't lose sleep over it, because there are tons of reasons why it happens for so and so and not the other one. And I'm in this for a long haul. I want to be doing this till I'm dead. So
yeah, no, definitely. And if you were nominated for an Emmy, you'd have to submit an episode. Would it be the one where you go to court?
I suppose so. Yeah, I think that's the most impactful moments for Fiona, the way they were written and the way they were executed, probably.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a good choice for sure. We were talking a bit about how Shameless pushes the boundaries and nothing's off limits. In some ways, though, and how offensive a show it is, but in some ways the offence is more at the characters themselves than the actual groups that could, I guess, potentially be offended. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm. You mean the specific characters in the episodes?
Yeah, I think the Gallaghers in some ways, or Frank, rather than the people.
I mean, we definitely have pushed a lot of boundaries. There's no race that doesn't get shafted. We even had an episode this year with an actor who was actually mentally challenged, and there was a whole episode about the use of the word retard, and that person's retarded, and how we use it as a common phrase. And so we like to tackle these issues that other people kind of shy away from or would find offensive. And of course we do it in the most offensive way, but I think we really are kind of talking about things that are interesting and titillating and thought-provoking. And so when I read the scripts, I feel lucky that John Wells isn't afraid to write in a character that is challenged. And I think that that's very cool. And it was a very moving day on set to kind of be part of that and to watch Joan Cusack kind of play those scenes. So I think, I mean, we definitely are poking fun at our characters, but I think it goes far beyond that. I mean, we're definitely insulting everybody.
Yes. We've got also, has there ever been a scene you've felt uncomfortable doing on Shameless?
There was a scene, there was a storyline this year where Fiona's working at a supermarket for a boss that is sexually harassing the employees at the supermarket, the checkout girls. And Fiona finds out that he's kind of trading sexual favors with them for, basically just to keep their jobs. They have to perform oral sex on him. And it was treated in a very comic way, and I was very uncomfortable playing the whole storyline because I think, sexual harassment isn't something that should be taken lightly. But I kind of got my, but I tried not to play it for laughs because we kind of, the comedy in our show is inherently a drama and deals with tough subject matter, but the comedy inherently comes out of the kind of bizarre circumstances that this family finds themselves in. So even though the storyline ended up being quite comic, I tried to play it very straight, and that's kind of how I approach everything in terms of this show, not to play it for the laugh. And it wasn't my favorite storyline, but I found the truth in it, and I think that that's your job. I mean, I've never been on a television show before, so I'm new to the whole process of getting a new storyline, or knowing that you have, a secret long lost brother that you didn't know about, or knowing that, this person's going to die in the next episode, and how do you process that? So coming from film where your A to Z storyline and you can map out all your points in between so that it logically follows that arc, and then coming to a television show where which much more is like life, where you don't know what's going to happen in the next episode, the next day, the next hour. It's definitely more challenging, but exciting, because you can't control every moment and you can't plot everything out. And I think that that's when you start to, at least I as an actor, start to give up control. And I think that's when I'm my most relaxed and my best.
Yeah, no, and I guess, so you got the uncomfortable stuff on Shameless, but there's a lot of fun stuff on Shameless too. What's the most fun thing you've had to do on the show?
Well, I loved shooting the summer scenes. We had a kind of dirty pool in the Gallagher's backyard. We had a lot of fun with that. I really liked the stuff that they shot on the ice cream cart where they would sell drugs off the ice cream truck. We have a lot of fun. There's so much love in this family and offset in the family that we've created. And it's a amazing environment to work in. I mean, we're one of the only sets that doesn't work with sides. There are no sides on set. So when you come to set, every single person knows every line of dialogue they'll say that day at 7 a.m. crew call. So literally you're shooting by 7:12. And it runs really well because of that. And we're able to play so much more with the scenes because no one's sitting around, learning their lines. There's no time wasted. So it's a really fun experiment and experience. It's great. I love it.
How's that for the one-page courtroom scene?
Oh, fine. Are you kidding? I had 3 whole days to obsess over it and figure out every way I could say anything. And then I got there and they're like, so it's going to be one long tracking shot into you. And I was like, oh, but it was fine. And you learn to give up control and you learn to just breathe through it and find the truth in it. And it's scary, but it's fun.
Yeah, no, and we've got we asked us some questions in the chat room for you, Emmy, and we had one come through from Ian Daly, and he's asked, how do you feel about Justin Chatwin not being on the show anymore?
I'm sad. I'm so sad because he is one of my best friends, and we grew up together, and I love him. And when you develop that relationship with someone on camera, you're going to have a connection off camera. It's inherently, when you've worked that closely with somebody, that intimately with somebody, you're going to have those feelings of love for them. And so reading the episode in which we realized he wasn't coming back and his character had died was so emotional and hard for everyone. And just makes me feel like, wow, I really better keep on top of my game or I could end up dead.
Yes. Yeah, oh man.
That's TV. Yeah. It's like you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, no. So that's a real shame. Oh, I didn't know you'd grown up with him. That sort of was nice.
Well, I feel as if I'd grown up with him. We did a terrible movie together, Dragonball Evolution. And so we were in Mexico for like 6 months making this movie, both looking like anime characters, like totally ridiculous. And then a couple years later, we got this show together. So I feel like we've been like best friends for 6 or 7 years. And even though I know I can go see him, in Venice whenever I want, he's not with me every day on set now, and that'll be harder.
And you're working on a movie now, Emmy?
I am, yeah. I just finished a film with Hilary Swank called Youre Not You that George Wolfe directed. That comes out probably early next year. And I'm right now in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, which is quite spooky because there are many gravestones right outside my trailer door. And it's a romantic dramedy called Comet.
Oh, nice. And and also, can you tell us anything about season 4 of Shameless? Do you know much about what's in store?
You're breaking up. I can't hear you. What did you say?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you tell us anything about season 4 of Shameless, Emmy?
Oh, well, we go back to shooting in September. I know they just went back into the writer's room last month, and I know absolutely nothing. They did that whole like, we're sworn to secrecy. I'll get to go in the writer's room in a couple weeks and hear what's happening, but if I tell anyone, they know people that I'll be killed in real life.
Yeah. Justin Chatwin didn't tell anyone any spoilers, did he? That wasn't why they had him on the
No. I think inherently they felt like Fiona and Jimmy would never end up together. Even though they had this great love, it didn't mean that they were meant to be together. Jimmy, Steve, whatever his name was by the end, had led such a double life for so long that, inherently Fiona had big trust problems and he had gotten himself into a lot of hot water. And I feel like even though they loved each other so deeply, it wasn't necessarily going to be a forever kind of a thing. So I think it'll be interesting to process the loss for Fiona because, of course, she doesn't know, as far as we left it off at the end of season 3, that he's dead. She only knows that he left because they had a big fight, and she obviously, has severe abandonment issues and anger problems. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the ramifications of not knowing that he's dead, just thinking he's left, kind of what that does to her.
Yeah, and look, Emmy, it's if you sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. The if you ever want to be encouraged, Emmy, I'd recommend going into the Gold Derby forums and searching for the Shameless season 3 thread, because I was going through that this week before talking to you, and there's just so many people that really want to see you get an Emmy nomination and have been saying really lovely things about you in there, and especially the courtroom episode and things like that. So if you ever want to get encouraged, go check out the Gold Derby forum.
Okay, good. I'm having a really bad PMS day. I'll go on there and feel better about myself.
Yes. Do it, Emmy, because people were really crazy about your performance this year, and it's been really great talking to you. All the best for the
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.